Bum 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 bum. Don't worry, happy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry, I got cornered by a neighbor who wouldn't stop talking.
Oh, we get that all the time, don't we? This is such a hot market that people want to talk about what? Real estate,
Everything real estate.
right? I know, I know. But today we're going to have fun, waiting for peeps to get on.
Our ability to compete in this market really depends on our ability to know the contract. I want to share a quick story. I was in Tampa at the Tampa office, and Adam is a new agent, not a new agent, but new to us. And he moved here from Miami and he wanted to buy a house. What a time to buy a house, right?
Yeah.
So I found a house in Tampa Heights. And guys, listen to me carefully when I say this, because there's a lot of wisdom in this. He wrote an offer, full price, with an escalation clause. Idea number one. His escalation clause was $10,000 above your next best offer, not to exceed $30,000 over the asking price. That's nothing new, right? You know what else he did? He put in an appraisal contingency and said he would eat the first $15,000.
That's bold.
Isn't that bold? So the seller said, this guy wants this house.
Yeah.
10,000 over your next best offer, not to exceed $30,000 of asking price. And if it doesn't appraise, I'll eat the first 15,000.
That is
Guess what?
very, very bold.
He won. So what's the goal?
To win.
To get the house.
Yeah.
So now he's excited because the house actually came with a vacant lot next door. What's happening to the vacant lot? Going up in value. So he can sell that lot in the future and knock the price down. Smart move. But look how bold he was to get that to happen. Right?
That
Yeah.
area has shot up in value tremendously. I used to own houses in Seminole Heights over there. And I will tell you, that area is so different than it was 20, 30 years ago. We see pockets like that all over the market. We see that in Tampa. We see that in Apollo Beach. Remember how people used to make fun of the F streets?
Oh my God, they're $200,000 now.
Yeah, you can make a pretty penny on those F streets, right? Sarasota, same thing. We got pockets like that. It used to be Rosemary. Used to be, not anymore.
Well, here's what happens. We become familiar with what we're familiar with. And that's why you need to get out and look around, because Tampa Heights, for example, is what? 6 minutes on the interstate from downtown?
5, 4.
4 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't live that close to a big city inexpensively, right? Long term.
Exactly.
So, and that's what's happening. Palmetto Beach is a really cool area. You know, you take the causeway in,
Yes.
you know, kind of, downtrodden right now, but it can't last. It's what, 2 minutes on the crosstown to downtown?
It is. It is really, really close. Yeah.
And you guys are in real estate. So you need to know your contracts, and you have to get a little bit bold and make some decisions to get some things done. And why not? I'm talking to agents every day who are winning. I've talked to 3 agents this week that have over 8 pending contracts going right now.
And how many did they have to write to get to those 8?
I actually asked that question. In this case, it was 12 or 14.
Yeah. And they were well written to begin with. It's just this market is what it is.
So your ability to coach your customer, like Adam coached himself, is paramount to your success.
It really is. And having a little extra money in your pocket and not expecting to have the sellers pay those extra closing costs and all those stuff that we normally would see in a slower market. Be prepared. Have some cash in that mattress ready to go. Of course, make sure it's sourceable. We don't want any secret funds.
For sure.
We are going to have fun with contracts today. I remember in law school, contracts and real estate were called the most constipated areas of law. We all hated it because there wasn't enough change. Today, we see so much more changing, so much more preciseness with timelines. We're going to go over timelines today because these are things I think sometimes when you get in the heat of the negotiations and you're on that ledge and you're all excited about that contract, the subtle nuances can make or break a deal. Everybody wants to get a sweet spot in the contract. Just make sure it's doable. What else do we need to do? We need to be nice. I know that sounds silly. And Craig, I'm sure you agree. But really, today you're going to be that rock star listing agent and you're going to have all these buyers coming in. You're going to be double siding that listing. But guess what's going to happen tomorrow? You're probably going to be a buyer's agent too. Because in this business, to do well, you're going to be wearing both hats simultaneously. Today, tomorrow, today, tomorrow. So what does that mean? When you're dealing in this market, or any market for that matter, treat other people as you expect yourself to be treated. Now, if you like to be treated poorly, then this is not going to make sense to you. But most of you do like to be treated nice. I don't think too many people like to be beat up or bashed around or talked to like dirt. So just be nice, be respectful.
But I'm going to add to that because this is very important. You know, I've had experience with this Mirror Bay transaction, and you know, this is between us group, not to be released to the public. The seller's gone batshit crazy, and he's decided that he committed to sell these houses at a contract price, and now the market has escalated so high he wants more money for them. So he's making it miserable on the buyers, hoping that they'll cancel so he can resell the houses for more money. Right? And we had a conversation, he and I, on Saturday, where I said, dude, your ethics and morals just don't line up with mine. I'm not working for you anymore. Right? Being nice is probably one of the most important things you can do. And this guy broke the camel's back when he's not being nice. You don't break your contract. If the houses went down in value, is he going to lower the price for them?
Oh, God, no.
No. What does a contract do? It gives the buyer the right to buy and the seller the obligation to sell. Get that drilled into your head. So I had a couple in the office Monday night literally saying, we don't understand. We signed a contract for $750,000. We gave him $75,000. Now he says he's not going to build our house. Yep. What should we do? What did I say? Kathleen, what did I say when they said, what should we do?
Hey, you can get the advice of counsel, you know.
Exactly. Guys, don't be afraid to say that. You
No.
all pussyfoot around that.
No.
Get a lawyer. Get a lawyer. They told their story to the lawyer. Now, this is important to remember. They told their story to the lawyer. So the lawyer is reacting to their story. Now what's going to happen? The seller is going to get a lawyer, and he's going to tell that lawyer his story.
Right.
Right? And that's where lawyers actually become really important, believe it or not, because they're less attached to the outcome. So they can negotiate better than the two parties who are committed to the belief in the story that they've created for themselves.
Absolutely right. Unlike matrimonial law where the lawyers tear each other apart, and it's really, that's the worst area of law. I never practiced that area for that reason, because in that area of law, there's the dog, and guess what the lawyers want to do? Split the dog. You get the tail and you get the head. No, thank you. That's a horrible area of law. Contracts, on the other hand, lawyers are trained to think through the process, and we're going to analyze it. And we're going to say, okay, breach, specific performance, which one would you like to pick? And most of the time, we're going to, the two sides are going to bring it together and make it work, because neither one of them really want to see this go on and on litigated in courts, unless, of course, you're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of property. In that case, they might want to see it litigated just to stick it to the other side that breached to begin with. So, you know, your lawyers want to be nice too, not because we're superficial. It's just a good business practice. And when you get somebody who decides they want to go batshit crazy, you know, that reflects poorly on the whole process. So we try to reel them back in before it goes getting lawyered up. But if you got to do it, you got to do it. Don't be
Well,
afraid of those things.
here's how it works, and you can comment on this better than I can. Our contract has an arbitration clause. That's why we use the FAR bar contract, because it was written by the Florida Association of Realtors and the bar in conjunction with each other. And they all know that lawsuits, I mean, each party is going to spend, correct me, at least $50,000 to get to trial.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're going to spend 50 grand, you're going to spend 50 grand, you're going to get to a jury trial. It's going to take, in today's system, it's going to take years to get to trial, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The courts are backed up beyond belief.
Yeah.
So
COVID is
pushed back. You're doing Zoom friggin' trials now. So each party is going to spend 50 grand in legal fees to get to trial years from now. Does that help them get into the house?
No.
No. So it's going to force mediation or arbitration, which can happen readily because lots of good lawyers are retired and now they're arbitrators. And they'll get in and the party's going to see the difference. And the arbitrator is going to let them know that it's going to cost them 50 grand to get to trial and it's going to take 3 years to get to court and all this other stuff. And somebody's going to say, well, shit, I cannot spend 50 grand and I cannot wait 3 years. Why don't we split the baby and I'll give you some and you take some less and we'll make this thing happen.
It's exactly the terms we use. You're spot on. Arbitration mediation is a very useful tool. I've mediated a lot of cases with disputes because I'm a county court certified mediator, and it's a wonderful thing when you can come away and make these things happen effectively for both sides. But it's a tragedy that it gets to that point to begin with. And it all turns down to one thing. Somebody's got an ego here that doesn't know how to just put it in a can and save it for the next fishing tournament or whatever sport that they like to engage in, basketball, football, whatever it might be. And they need to take their ball and go home. literally. Just to go over time periods, I know most of us know these things, but we do have a lot of new agents that are online with us today as well. So just in case you didn't know.
Don't say that though, because it's not for new agents. We all get lost in this.
This is
I
true.
talked to a very experienced agent the other night who called me just to double check that the time periods were correct. So what was Monday this week?
Oh my God. Monday was
President's
crazy.
Day.
Yes.
Is President's Day a national holiday?
It is, but we were working. Yes,
So
the banks are closed. Yes.
How do you find out if President's Day is a national holiday?
You could go on.
Google it.
Google it. Yeah,
So
it's a national holiday. Absolutely.
Monday is a national holiday. So an agent had a deal and the time for acceptance or the deposit was due on Saturday.
Okay.
Because an agent who wrote the offer didn't check the calendar when they wrote the offer and the thing was due on Saturday.
Right.
Well, Saturdays, anything that falls on a Saturday gets delayed to the next business day.
Correct.
Which would be Monday.
Right.
Except Monday was President's Day, which means the Saturday delivery was due on Tuesday. You need to know that.
Right.
A very experienced agent called to double check to make sure they were right. And if that happens, drum roll, listen. What time on Monday is it due?
By 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Right.
If it was due on Friday, what time is it due?
5 p.m.
No, ma'am.
Next day,
5 midnight. There's no 5 p.m. in this contract except for one period of time. If the due date falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or a legal holiday,
that's right.
It moves to the next business day at 5 p.m.
Right.
Nowhere else in the contract does it say 5 p.m.
Nope.
It's due by February 8th. That would be 11:59.
11:59 is correct. Yep.
If you write in 5 p.m., then it's 5 p.m.
It's true.
If you don't write it in, it's 11:59. But if it falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or a national legal holiday, it's 5 p.m. the next business day. That's very confusing.
It is.
We have a big ethics case going on right now surrounding that topic.
Ooh. And an easy solution to a lot of this, if we just use the paramount title application, do your good faith deposit online. We've got a great portal. I've sent it out. I know Craig has sent it out. It's so easy. And Craig, I know you did it recently. You might be able to walk people through it just to remind them, because this eliminates a lot of headaches.
Watch this.
Should I unshare?
No, I'll do it for you.
Okay.
Here's my next event, 10:30 guac filming. Untitled.fl.com. Now, when your customer gets an invitation, it's kind of a pain in the ass, really. You got to sign up. This is that Alana. She's the virtual assistant. You can ask her all kinds of questions, actually tell you jokes. So
Place an order?
I already have an order, but
Hypothetically.
yeah. Where's my login? There it is.
Ah, okay.
Usually it just takes me right to where I want to go. I'm sorry, guys. I mean, usually it just happens like immediately. I'm gonna have to do it again. I'm sorry.
Let's submit, yeah.
But normally it's I guess I'm hitting the wrong button. This is Paramount Title. I must have missed something. I want to log in. This is what I told them after my last closing. I said, guys, this is too complicated. Put the button to the top.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. I thought they were tweaking that to make that more efficient.
They said they would, but it always takes time.
Simply text to this lady right here what she needs, what you need.
I'm going to call Sean. This is embarrassing. Okay, I'll get it fixed. Unsharing my screen.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Let me go back.
Thank you, Joe.
Anyway, on the subject of timelines, escrow, what we know about escrow, we've had a lot of things come up about escrow in the last couple of weeks. And that's another reason why we're going over this again, just to let everybody know. If it says 3 days, if you're using 3 days, 3 days it is. Like we were saying, don't mail checks. Checks, how long do checks take to get in today's mail? 7 days, 8 days, 10 days? We have to just remind our buyers that is not the way to do it. Go ahead and get on the portal. Worst case scenario, have somebody bring it into the title company. When I've run with my buyers, I've always taken it. If they insist on a check, I get in my little car and I drive it over to the title company and I stand there and I wait for a receipt. Why do I do that? I don't want to breach. What happens if you breach? Sellers in these markets, what do, Craig? They're going to cancel that contract, and guess what else they can do?
The buyer was in a hospital getting chemotherapy and sent the deposit 2 days late. The seller said, sorry, you're in breach. I'm canceling your contract. Take your deposit back. Which he didn't have to give him the deposit back either.
No, and that was a $10,000 deposit.
Failure to make your deposit when due is a breach of contract. The penalty for breach of contract is forfeiture of deposits paid and agreed to be paid.
That's right.
So if this is a $10,000 initial deposit and another $10,000 after the inspection date, the buyer, by missing that deadline, would be obligated to pay $20,000 for that breach of contract.
That's right. That's right.
You can't mess that up.
Mm-mm.
And it's easy. You know, I just bought a house and I had 3 days.
Yeah.
Well, 3 days gave me plenty of time. So urgency involved in that.
Yeah. So you're better off just doing it online.
But what happens if I went to the doctor and I found out my whatever?
Yeah.
I missed it. That 3 days is important. So you as an agent need to be doing your critical date timelines, putting those calendar items in your calendar with an alert notification at least 24 hours before. So you can call your buyer and say, hey, remember, you got to get that deposit in today. Here's how you do it.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, you can always, if you find out on day one that God forbid you got to go in for a surgical procedure or something and you're going to be under anesthesia and not with it for the next day or so, get an addendum extension to the seller's agent prior to the due date of when that escrow is supposed to get in, if need be, and see if they'll agree to extend it. Because if they're not, then somebody's going to have to jump through hoops of fire to get that escrow over there. It looks like we got a question. Let me see here.
Deb says make sure it's wired on time, and also the title company sends confirmation of receiving.
Absolutely, yes. Spot on. Yep, because once you have that, it's all about receipt. Not when we send it, but receipt. So we can't emphasize that enough.
Well, let's talk about that. So if I send the wire on the 11th and it's due on the 11th, and the wire gets held up for some reason, I think it's probably has something to do with the method of delivery. If you mail it on the 11th, that's not the case. It's not going to be in on time. If you wire it on the 11th, that's a question I don't know.
You know, I don't see in the contract where it gives us any wiggle room for that.
I don't either.
It's receipt. I mean, it's out there. It's receipt. Now you can have the proof of having it wired and get it over to the listing agent. Hey, look, this was wired. Here's the proof, and have that extension for, let's say, for a day or so, just in case there's an issue with the banks. That's not a bad practice to get into, especially as busy as the banks are and as busy as everybody is, because that's part of the problem with this. And the other thing is, I know we're trying to get contracts in with the best possible options for our buyers to win it, but if they're out of state, another country, we got to calculate that into the timelines of the escrow. If somebody's in another country, 3 days isn't going to work, because it's going to take a day, just depending on where you're at. 10-hour difference, 12 hours difference. What if you're in China? You've got even more hours difference in the day. So, you know, be very, very careful when you're calculating the time frames. As we talked about before.
Prevention is for the pound of cure.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We talked about that. We also talked about, now, CRISP. We do not use CRISP with this brokerage because it is difficult, not to mention the business days. Huge difference between this particular contract and the regular contracts. I absolutely do not like CRISP because of that, because of calculating the times. We're going to see from time to time people trying to use those. When you have a listing, make sure you have a chat with your seller. Let them know, hey, look, these are the two contracts we use. We prefer not to use the CRISP because it's using business days, and that gives the buyer a lot more time for wiggle room. Craig, what do you feel about that?
Well, I think in addition to that, the CRISP contract does not have the stamp of the Florida bar because it doesn't have
right
to it. It forces mediation, and there's nothing else. So there's no resolution of a contract problem if there is one, which is fine. I mean, come on, we've done 50,000 real estate transactions, never been sued. So it generally doesn't happen. But in the event, you don't have to be good until you do. And if you need teeth in a contract, you want to use FAR. And most you don't need teeth in a contract, but if you do, you do. Cheryl just wrote in, Cheryl, it is a little confusing. So just choose Apollo Beach. Paramount title is in Apollo Beach. So just use that, you'll always be safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
It says which office do you want this wire to go to.
Sure. And that's our central office, and they're really good over there. Missy will help you. Sean will help you. Any issues that come up, those girls are really good. And just in case, those of us that may not be familiar, the Florida Realtors also have commercial contracts, vacant land contract. Those are calendar days also. Very similar to the Florida Realtors, Florida Bar contracts on the other two that we use. Same thing with the holiday timelines. And for any differences, you know, you could look at paragraph 3 of the commercial contract and paragraph 10 of the vacant land contract that really circles in on those timelines for you. So just in case you didn't know that there's those other two contracts, we do have those as well. We will be selling a lot more land than we used to. I know over here we've got about 4 contracts that just came in for land. Craig, I think you're seeing a lot more contracts for land because people want to build.
I've owned a piece of land for 15 years that I've not wanted to own for 15 years, that had zero interest in it and is now under contract.
There you go. There you go.
I mean,
you sat on it.
Everything is selling.
Yeah.
Somebody named Meeting raised their hand, but I don't know what that means.
Let me see.
Somebody's logged in as a person named Meeting, and their hand was raised, but I don't know what that means.
Okay. I don't see any questions yet, but if they do, we'll jump back to it. Let's see.
Canceling your hand too, but I don't know what raising your hand. I think people are just playing with their settings.
Could be, yeah. Or they're just saying hi. It could be that they're saying hi. Canceling contracts. Oh, we hate this so much. I don't know about you, but cancellation contract, I'm like, oh, no, let's work through it. But that
No,
being
no, this is really a bothersome. Guys, accept reality. When it's dead, it's dead. Cancel it, give the money back, put it back on the market. Right?
exactly, you
This
can't force the
personally
seller to
drives
sell.
me crazy when I go look at our pending contracts and see that 30 or 40 of them were due to close a week or two ago. It just makes no sense. It's over.
Right.
Extend it. Let me make this clear. It's over. There's no question about it. The contract date has passed. The contract is dead. So you have two options: extend it or
Mhm.
cancel it. That's it. That's it. In the absence of you doing something, it's dead.
Yeah. In the
So if you
absence
don't
of a
cancel it,
breach. Yeah.
buyer has the right to buy, the seller has the obligation to sell.
Right.
When the closing date passes, there's no longer a right to buy or an obligation to sell. It's over. So if you want to do a good job for your buyer, you get an extension signed. And if you can't, you cancel it and get the buyer their money back and go find them another house if they can qualify to buy one.
That's right.
You should have known when you put them on the contract in the first place.
Yeah. And just as a heads up, there is a clause for military members in the event that they have to get relocated. They get orders, their PCS orders, so long as they provide copies of that as a DD-14 along with their PCS orders. And that's the statute. I just want to provide to everyone because we don't talk about that too much. But from time to
PPS is
time,
personal change of service station.
yes, if it's 35 miles or more from the property location, yes, that does allow them to, with notice. They can't just show up for closing and say, oh, by the way, I'm moving. No, it doesn't work like that because then you got a host of other issues.
That goes back to your be nice.
What's that?
That goes back to your be nice topic.
Exactly, and be organized and so forth. Yep. After a seller has accepted a buyer's offer, there's no 3-day cancellation period. We are not selling a car. There's other states that do have that. We do not.
Well, we do in condominiums.
Correct. That's correct. With that notice that's in there, yes. And that's in the condo rider, yes. The right to cancel if they don't get the docs. And as a habit, I always check the box on the docs because as a good listing agent, I always make sure those HOA docs are in the MLS to begin with, and the amendments and so forth. And if anyone has problems trying to find HOA docs, you can always start with the deed. What does the deed have in addition to the legal description? It's got the page number, book number, and all that good stuff. That's always going to coordinate along with your HOA docs to get filed. There's references made in the deeds from the master deed. So if you have any problems researching that, let us know. Send us a text, an email, like us on Facebook. I'll help you because research and all that is something I'm really good at, and it's helped our agents over here be very well prepared on our listings and have them in there. Now I know HOAs.
Let me add to that because it's really important, and I'm waiting for a lawsuit on this one. The listing agent provided the HOA docs as an attachment to the MLS. We read the HOA docs, and the HOA docs had no rental restrictions in them. Our buyer relied on that, and our buyer bought the house with full intention of using it as a rental. They put a for rent sign in the yard with the property management company, and they got a cease and desist letter from the HOA president saying you're not allowed to rent this house. So there was an amendment to the HOA docs that nobody looked up. So when you find the official records page, you're going to find the docs that were filed in 1982. It's not necessarily going to reference that they were modified in 1996.
No, you got to look for the modifications. You got to look for the amendments, and usually they're in there. And you always reach out to the HOA office or the association office to get those extras. And the websites, you cite that as well into into your listing. You're always going to put that if they have a web page. Two things. You're always going to have them reach out to the HOA office, community association manager office for all updates, amendments, and so forth to the HOA docs and the HOA docs in addition to what you provide. But I always put the amendments in there too. And then your seller's responsible for making sure to get those extra amendments to you. And if they don't have it, you got to reach out to the association office. Condos are tough to list. You got to do a lot of extra work to make it. And same thing with associations. You could have an association that used to lease, and then all of a sudden they don't want to do it, and they've amended their docs, and you don't know about it. So that's a really good point.
Let me expand on that again, because I think we're getting a little confusing here. HOA, you do not have to give them docs. If you're a good agent, you're going to make sure your buyer gets the docs.
Yeah.
But all the HOA requires is the HOA addendum,
Right.
which says, hey, buyer, there's an HOA in this neighborhood that has a bunch of rules to follow. And you better make yourself familiar with them. And the payment is this much a month.
Right.
And the association facilities are owned or leased or whatever that is. And that's it. And it says, if you're not given this addendum within 30 days, you can cancel.
Correct.
It doesn't say if you're not given the documents.
Oh, no, no, only the
So
condo.
I'm not
Yeah.
talking to you on this, Kat. I know you know, but I want the agents to get real clear. The HOA is an addendum that says, hey, there's some shit out there you ought to know. Sign this and go figure it out on your own. You're not going to get the HOA and then read it and have 3 days to cancel like you do the condo docs. So
Right.
the HOA is a tricky one. But if you don't give them the HOA addendum, the buyer has the right to cancel the contract within 30 days. So how do we overcome that, Kathleen?
You make sure you have that HOA addendum in your listing, as well as getting it over, if you're on the buyer side, making sure your buyer sees it, making sure your buyer has the access to the information they need. Most of the time too, if they want to read the docs and so forth, they've got links they can go look at. You can give that to them as well. Or if you really want to be industrious, you can download it in a big old PDF and email it to them. You know, when you've got high.
What I would do is I would put the HOA addendum as an attachment to the MLS.
Mhm.
Because I know what the contract says. And the contract says that notification to the agent is deemed as good as notification to the customer.
That's right.
So by you attaching it to the MLS, you're notifying the other agent that there's an HOA and here's the addendum. So by notifying that agent, you've notified the customer, so they no longer have a 30-day right to cancel.
That's right.
If you write the contract and don't have the HOA addendum as part of the offering and you forget it, you're sitting there at sufferance. Right now, the buyer can cancel anytime they want to until you give it to them. And how are you going to remember to give it to them? You're not. Life goes on. You got 48 other buyers that are trying to find houses right now. So prior proper planning leads to positive results.
And that's why we always want the agents to do everything up front when they're getting an offer ready to go. Don't slack on that addendum. Don't slack on the seller's property disclosure. Don't slack on those things. I know everybody wants to get those offers in. I'll get the rest later. No, don't do it. The contract is very specific for that reason. And as a good practice, you know, dot loop is amazing because it pulls everything together. There's no reason not to go ahead and have everything set up in your dot loop, autofill all that information up front in the people section, and then click, autofill, and send it all at one time. Don't piecemeal it. Again, I know people get caught up in the heat of the moment, but make it a good practice. Take your time and do it right the first time, and you will thank us in the morning.
You know, I was at Dr. Axe's office this week for my little checkup, and Dr. Binner was there, and he says, you guys must be crushing it. Real estate's great, isn't it? And my answer was yes, it is. But let me tell you, it is harder now than ever. And he was like, what? I said, you don't understand. I said, we get a listing and we got to coordinate 48 showings in the next 48 hours. And then we get 14 offers we have to evaluate. And then we have to deal with 13 pissed off people that didn't get it and 13 pissed off agents who don't get it. And then we got a bunch of sellers out there that think they don't need us because this house is going to sell real fast. And I said, the fact of the matter is we should be charging more because we're doing so much more work right now. And I've had that conversation with probably 6 different people, non-real estate related people, and they never looked at it that way. So I think you and Deborah yesterday were talking about standing up for our commissions. Stand up for your commissions now more than ever. The fact that it sells in a day is not easier.
Mm-mm.
It's harder. It takes more skill. It takes more diligence. It takes more efforts. And I would honestly, you know, I think Deborah said yesterday, Jeff says no, any other questions? I'd say no. In fact, we should be charging more because it's harder now than it has been before. That will get their attention, guys. I'm serious. Say things. I'm not making this shit up. Say absolutely not. We should be charging more now. It's so much more difficult. What do you mean it's more difficult? The house to sell like that? Yeah, but I got to arrange 48 showings in 44 hours and get 14 offers and help you educate on which of those 14 offers is best for you. And then I got to deal with 13 pissed off people.
It's so true.
That's hard, guys. We go home at the end of the day tired, more tired now than we did before.
Very true.
It's
Very true.
So use these words. That's why we give them to you.
And sometimes you're going to be dealing with friends that are going to want to nickel and dime you to death. I had that conversation yesterday with two dear friends of mine, and I'm going to be listing their property in a little bit, like in about a week and a half. And the commission conversation came up, and I went through the litany list of all the things that we're going to be doing, and not to mention all the different people from our office that support them, and to make that listing happen, to get that into the MLS, the extensive advertising that we provide, the mail out cards that we do, and so forth. And in some situations, we're going to be meeting vendors over there to open up the door to get the place clean and so forth. By the time I went through the litany list, I said, not only am I worth it, I'm worth double this, but I'm going to do you a favor. I'm only going to charge you 6%. Like, okay. I mean, you have to, because we work our behinds off. This is not easy. And I also made the comment, I said, doctors don't discount their fees. You're both doctors, right? Well, that stopped real quick. I mean, I almost, insulted borderline on it, but not really, because it's the truth. And if when people came to me in my prior profession and wanted to nickel and dime me to death, I'd say, no, you get what you pay for. And if you want to go to so-and-so, good luck on the depots, good luck on showing up on the court hearings, good luck on the extra things that we're going to do, because they're not going to do it. You want that DUI
We
trial?
got this photo. That crown is $750. Will you do it for 500? No, you wouldn't even have the balls to ask your dentist to lower their fee.
No.
But I understand that people do it in real estate because they feel they have to. Yeah. And if you stand up, they're going to agree with you 95% of the time.
Yeah, exactly. That DUI trial is going to cost you 10 grand. You want to go over here and pay $1.99 for it? What are you going to get? $1.99. He's going to plea it out, and you're going to be going to jail. Pick one. That was always what I would always say, because it's true. They're not going to do anything for you. It's just the way it is. This business is no different. We just feel, here's what I see that tends to be and I think Craig will probably back me up on this one. We want so bad to please people. We want so bad to do everything we can for them. We wear our hearts on our sleeves, but you know what? Can't do it. It's a business. Put your heart back inside your shirt, your blouse, whatever it is. Keep it to yourself, because this is not an emotional business. This is a business. This is an investment in yourself and an investment in that listing. Because what happens every time you close? You're unemployed. You go to the next one. You go to the next one. You go to the next one. So you have to constantly be working that cycle. So not to digress, and Craig, tell me if I'm crazy or wrong, but you have to value yourself.
100%. Susan just wrote, the fact that many listing agents are giving themselves higher commission percentages on the buy side is outrageous. The norm seems to be 2.5% to the buyer and 3.5% for the listing side. I would have to look at closing statements to verify that. I think a lot of times you don't know. When you look at the MLS, all you see is the buy side commission, period. You have to see the closing statement to see if the listing side is getting more. I think a lot of listing agents right now are taking 5% listings, splitting it 2.5, 2.5. Some are taking 4% listings, paying 2.5, keeping 1.5. You can't see what really happens until it actually closes. But it is offensive, really, when to me it is anyway.
It is.
6% listing, pay 2.5% to the buyer's agent, would be 3.5 for themselves.
Yeah.
Because I think that's your interest above your clients, but I'm old school, and that is what it is.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Now, there's going to be times where you're going to have your sellers or your buyers wanting to use a POA and a DPOA, a power of attorney and a durable power of attorney. Make sure that you have a copy of that when you're having those signatures done by those parties, because they can say they have a POA, they think they have one, and it's stuck in a drawer somewhere that Aunt Betty gave them 99 years ago. So you got to make sure you have one, have a copy of it. You're not going to do anything with it. You're just going to make sure that you see the copy of it. Durable power of attorney, what that means is it's going to continue on in the event that somebody becomes incapacitated. What's important about this little blurb here is if somebody passes away, they're both out the door. We're going to be dealing with probate. And just because it's gone into probate doesn't mean that person's position as an heir has been established to have the ability to sell. You have to make sure you have a court order if you're in probate from the court that does give that person the authority to sell, or there's a trust document that is directing that person to have the authority to sell. But probate's real tricky.
You guys brought this up yesterday too, which you didn't say yesterday, I didn't hear it, is probate is also making sure there's no other debts that are owed by the estate.
Correct. First 90 days.
It's not just waiting to make sure you have the right to sell the house. It's waiting to make sure the estate doesn't owe money to other people. So even though you're an heir, it doesn't mean you can sell a house. The estate might owe money to other people. And before the money from this sale can be dispersed to the heirs, it might have some debts to pay. And there's advertising standards they go through and run ads in the papers and notice to owners and all this stuff.
Administration, the first 90 days. So when you're doing probate listings, plan on having at least 120 days out there when it's in probate, from the time it gets filed to the articles and so forth, and then the publications and the 90 days and all that. You're going to have a time frame here you're going to be working through. It's not going to be a quick sale. So you have to be well versed, whoever the attorney is handling it, stay on track with them and follow the procedures, so that you don't have a disappointed buyer that says, look, I've waited 60 days. I thought I was going to have this house in 60 days. Ain't no way you're going to do it unless all of this stuff has been in a trust and that's administered completely differently.
Right.
Probate is a process.
So make it easy on yourselves. Get the documents, give them to the title company, let them tell you what to do with it.
Absolutely.
Unless you're going to specialize in probate deals.
Yeah. And India over in Sun City does a fantastic job of reviewing title for us for probate and letting us know, hey, this is what's out here. This is what we see in the way of a mortgage and so forth. She's fantastic. Extension addendum to contract. We talked about that to make sure in the event that there's upcoming issues, if you need to extend the closing, what if you still have the finance contingency that hasn't been met and you extend it and you didn't extend the finance contingency? Craig, tell them what happens with that.
Well, it's very interesting. I've got a buyer right now that's trying to put piece of land I told you about, and they want to extend the closing date, and they want to extend the loan approval date. And I'm like, no, you get your loan approval, and I'll give you an extension to close. I don't care about that, but I'm not going to give you an extension to get your loan approval. Either you got money or you don't. Don't waste my time, because I found out I sold a lot too cheap anyway. Because now it was worthless for 14 years. Now it's worth something.
Mm-hmm.
So I sold it too cheap. So I hope he doesn't. So the point is, the extension of the closing date is extending the closing date.
Right.
If you extend the closing date and you think the loan approval date is trailing it, you're wrong.
Mm-mm.
The loan approval date stays as the loan approval date unless you extend that as well. So
Right.
depending on your situation, listing agent, buyer's agent, I usually think as a listing agent, I'll give you a closing date extension, but I'm not giving you a loan approval extension. As a buyer's agent, if you give them a closing date extension, you better move your loan approval extension along with it, or you're going to put your buyer in a position where they're going to be stuck.
That's exactly right. Offers and counter offers. We talked about this all week long. We talked about it last week too. Just a quick reminder, make sure it's in writing. Please don't text these things back and forth. I don't know how many times we've talked about keeping texting out of this. And remember, you can't force a seller to sell. When a seller has a contract in front of them, it's not always going to be just on the dollar amount that they're looking at. Of course, in this market so hot, actually it is, and then some. But don't evaluate it in a vacuum. Sometimes there's other things that have been presented in that offer that make it better. An earlier closing date, cash, all those kind of things.
I'm working with I'm actually working with 4 sellers right now that are in their 80s.
Hmm.
And their piece of property is extremely valuable. And to maximize its value will likely take in excess of 2 years to get to closing. A lower sales price would take the risk off of the seller and put it more on the buyer. And I think these sellers would accept less money for a faster closing date than more money 2 years from now. So the situation between the sellers varies greatly, and you can't just assume the highest price is the right way to go.
No. And Regina's put a question. I didn't know if you saw that in the box. What if the seller's agent is unethical? Home probably shouldn't have been put on the market yet. Agent uses a signed contract as a tool to get the probate attorney to continue work, as according to the attorney, his only hope for compensation. Agent doesn't want the seller or probate attorney to know my buyer's backed out of this messy contract after title within 2 days discovered all kinds of issues, liens, judgments, minor's partial ownership interest, and the mother is uncooperative. No escrow was submitted because the title work came back so fast. Buyers canceled before escrow was due. and the seller won't sign the cancellation.
Well, if the escrow was ever sent in, who cares?
Well, if it was canceled before it was due, and I don't know what kind of contract this is, so it's a little bit hard to answer this one without knowing.
You
Sounds like
presume
an as is. What's that?
you can presume it's as is.
That's what I was thinking.
95% of them.
Yeah, so if they
But
cancel,
let's talk about it. If the 3 days to make the deposit, 7 days as is inspection period. If you cancel on day 2, then the contract's canceled, so the deposit's not due on day 3 because it was canceled on day 2.
right,
But if you canceled on day 4 and you didn't make the deposit on day 3, then the buyer breached the contract and then the seller would has the right to go after the deposit. Good luck getting it.
right,
That's kind of it.
yeah, yeah,
So Regina, you don't need a cancellation because the way you wrote this, the contract was canceled before the deposit was due and the deposit was never paid. So your cancellation is all you need.
that was my take on it too, with an as is, absolutely.
And she said,
A lot of times too, as appraisal contingencies, let me see. Wait, are you moving it? Is that you?
nope.
Oh, okay.
Go back to the closing first dot. Go back down one more. I don't understand. The seller must sign no, you were just there. Number down one more page.
Okay.
Nope, one more page. 8, closing date. If parties don't close on the closing date, the contract still exists. What does that mean? If they don't close on the closing date, the contract is dead. The issue then becomes why the contract failed to close or whether.
If there was a breach, let's say you've got a buyer that disappeared and doesn't want to go forward on, or you have a seller that disappeared and doesn't want to sell, and the buyer shows up for closing.
Okay, that's when the
Closing
contract says this paragraph shall survive the closing date.
Correct. That's what I'm talking about here. Yeah.
I just read that one sentence. So wait, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, there are certain parts of the contract that survive closing.
Right. Right. So that's what we're talking about. Let's see. Counteroffer. Use an addendum or a clean contract. A lot of times you're going to have counteroffers going back and forth in writing, of course. My own personal preference is just do a clean one. I don't like to see a contract with 9 million scratch outs. If that's what you have to do, you have to do it. But I prefer, and Craig, you know.
Yeah, I agree. If you, and especially in dot loop, it's so easy.
It really is.
Because once you make a change, it's going to erase all the signatures and initials. So just make the change and then send it out for re-signature by everybody and have a clean contract.
Exactly. Dot loop is such a wonderful tool. We didn't start out with that. I remember when we first started real estate, we had what was called a book with all the listings, and then we had paper contracts, and we filled them out by hand. And then we had the joy of transaction desk, which was a nightmare. For those of us that remember, you had to go through all these different levels to try to find documents. Then we had form simplicity that was kind of tough to move signatures around and initials around. Dot loop is the next best thing to chocolate. Right now, I love it. When I first started on it, I didn't like it because there was so much to learn. But once you understand it, it's a piece of cake because number one, it encrypts everything for you. On each page, the numbers are scrambled, so there's no cheating on this. It's date stamped. Each person has their own email signature on it, so there's no fraud. There's no issues with that because you have it documented. And it's just so easy to auto-populate everything. Even my sellers and buyers that are in their 80s and 90s, they really like it. When you show them, you sit with them how to do it, they're like, this is magical. That was the terms yesterday. I was dealing with my seniors. They said, this is magical. I wish we would have had this 20 years ago. And it was nice to hear that. I wanted to throw that in there because we don't get to talk about it that much.
My CPA sent me forms to sign for taxes yesterday. And I sent it back to him. I said, would you please send this to me for e-signing?
Yeah.
The thought of printing it out on paper, signing it with a pen, and then taking it to a scanner to email it to myself made me want to vomit.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
And he said, sorry, nope, I need a wet signature for the IRS docs. I said, they better get in time and step with the times.
Yeah.
But they're not going to listen to me, so it doesn't really matter.
Definitely. We've got a question on there about the multiple offer form and its use. There's a multiple offer form that you can give to your seller when you're sitting down at listing time to have that ready for them. That basically allows them to make choices on how they want to handle multiple offers. And then we have the buyer multiple offer form again, that's on the seller side that we can use for the seller to line up the various offers as they come in to choose from. And Chris Reed also sent over this fantastic multiple offer seller net Excel spreadsheet that I really like that calculates the numbers. And Craig, feel free to jump in on this.
Well, actually, you sent me a screenshot or an image of those forms. I actually want to look at those forms because I haven't seen them.
Okay.
So in.loop.
Yes, let me see. I can pull that up real quick. Give me one
If you
second.
pull it up with that together, sure.
Yeah, sure. I have it in the email.
I'm not sure I like the idea of using that multiple offer form because I think what it does is it prescribes how you're going to handle multiple offers.
It's an option. I don't think you necessarily have to use it. It's just an option. Let me find it real quick.
How are you looking when you're sharing your screen, but we're not seeing you search? Weird. Oh, you're probably sharing your screen differently than I do.
Let's see. Give me 1 second. Because my camera's goofy. I'm actually looking at it, but the camera makes me look like I'm not. Here we go. Let's see. Come on. All right, here we go. Can you see that? Oh, it's paused. Okay, let me see. New share.
Are you searching Florida interactive forms?
Oops.
I got it.
Okay, good enough. All right, because it's not, I'm having a hard time seeing it online.
I'll share my screen.
Okay.
All right, so I went to Florida interactive forms. The entire Florida Realtor library of forms. I typed in multiple in the search block, multiple offer form to seller, notice of multiple offers to buyer. So let's look at both.
Right.
Because this is actually news to me. So
hasn't been out that long.
Let's see when it came out. May of 2018.
Well, we didn't have it.
Multiple offer disclosure to seller. This disclosure provided by Central Line to you, sellers, regarding your property the same. As a seller, you should be aware that during the listing process, you may receive more than one offer on your property at approximately the same time. There are several options for you to consider if this occurs, each with its own benefits, risk, and potential legal consequences. Oh, this might be interesting because I've always had this question, and maybe you know it more than I do. Because when I put a house on the market for $350 in the MLS, I'm obligating the brokerage to pay a co-broke a commission if they bring me an offer that meets the terms of my listing agreement.
Correct.
So if somebody brings me a $350 offer and then somebody else simultaneously brings me a $355 offer, how come I don't owe commissions to both parties? So this might address that. Let's see. Here are some commonly used options so that you as a seller can provide direction to the brokerage as how you would like to proceed. The decision about how to proceed with any offer is entirely up to you as a seller. You can accept or counter the best offer and reject the others. It is possible in a multiple offer situation for you to simply accept or counter the best offer that you receive, thereby rejecting the other offers. It's also important to understand the risk in doing this, of course, because if you are countering one offer, the buyer may accept those countered terms, which would mean there is no agreement, may not accept those countered terms, which means there's no agreement. During this time, it's possible that the other interested buyers have moved on with other properties, although nothing prevents you from reaching back out to them to resubmit an offer. Because if the time for acceptance passes, what happens to their offer? It vaporizes. Additionally, in responding to only one buyer's offer, you may not be getting the best price, as it is possible that the buyer had known, that had the buyer known of other interested buyers, the buyer would have increased their price. Number two, you can respond with counter offers to some or all of the offers you received. With this option, to avoid the potential of being under contract with more than one buyer, you would need to reserve the right to be bound to only one of the accepted offers in your response. This would require disclosure to each of the interested parties that the counteroffer from you is one of a number of counteroffers you are making. It is therefore possible that a buyer would choose to withdraw from the negotiations if the buyer does not want to compete with other offers. Guys, this is important because if you do multiple counteroffers, what happens if two buyers accept the counteroffer?
Hmm.
You sold the house twice, dude.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So you counter one offer at a time. Number three, you can ask buyers to submit their highest and best offer. With this option, you are going back to the buyers who submitted an offer and ask them to present their highest and best offer on the property. The buyers would be asked to supply this offer by a certain deadline. It is important to understand this could result in the buyer resubmitting their original offer or submitting a new one. You would then have the option of considering all highest and best offers and deciding to accept, reject, or counter them all. Similar option two, any buyer could decide to withdraw from the negotiations if the buyer did not want to compete with other offers. If you, as a seller, are in a multiple offer situation, your realtor must check with you as to how you would like to proceed, including whether or not to disclose that multiple offers exist. Interesting. Understanding that you have options with regards to the response and to any offer is important so that you can properly instruct the brokerage on how to handle the negotiation process if you've received more than one offer at approximately the same time. Please consult an attorney if you have any questions. That's definitely a CYA, not necessary, but if you got a tough seller, I'd probably consider using that.
And that's basically my take on it. It does cover your behind. That was just me being very protective.
Yep. This might be a good one for buyers.
Mm-hmm.
Notice of multiple offer to buyers. This is May 8, 2018 too. Property address, sellers, listing for buyers, buyer's agent. Multiple offers have been received on the above described property. Seller has requested each buyer to submit his or her highest and best offer by 5:00 p.m. on February 20th. Offers submitted by the deadline are subject to the following. All offers must be in writing. Offers may be submitted to the listing agent via email or personal delivery. Seller has a sole and absolute discretion to accept, counter, or reject any. This is actually very good because some buyers think the seller has to accept their offer, and they don't. If you gave me a 355 and somebody else gave me a 350, and I like the 350 people better, I can sell to the 350.
That's absolutely right.
If I like cash better than finance, if I like this family better than that family, if I like the little girl at this house, it's subjective, 100%.
Yep.
Seller has a sole absolute discretion to accept, counter, or reject any offer received. Seller is not required to accept any offer regardless of the terms or conditions and has the right and discretion to reject all offers received. After receiving all offers, seller has the right to further negotiate the terms and conditions of any offer. Seller has no obligation to negotiate or communicate with each, every, or any buyer. Seller can make the decision to accept an offer based on criteria they deem appropriate under their circumstances and in the seller's sole judgment. Basically, you have no opinion here. Price is only one factor of many that is considered. If the seller accepts the buyer's offer and such offer does not result in a closed sale of the property, seller may, in seller's sole discretion, reopen negotiations with any buyer. Seller may also request the listing agent to solicit new offers. Yeah.
And John Evans makes a good point. This is where a personal letter can make the difference. He is spot on. We're always careful what we put in those personal letters, but I will tell you, they do influence your sellers. They do. They do. When you have a property, a perfect fit for this property, and it's perfect schools, blah, 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 all of those things. This portion of it is a very subjective portion, just like Craig said a moment ago.
Yep. Wow, that hour flew by quickly.
It did. It did. If anybody's got questions, email us, text us, like us on Facebook, and we will respond. We'll be happy to answer more questions and do more of these classes. I hope this was beneficial to everybody and going over timelines that really can be very tricky.
Oh, and today's Friday, so happy weekend.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Oh, Virginia, that's all that we can't answer that question. She says, does that get tricky dealing with protected classes? What if a seller doesn't want to sell to a certain class of people? I mean, you're talking the federal law. I mean, it's illegal.
Oh,
what
yeah.
you do in that situation is you disengage from the transaction. That's all you can do. If somebody says, I don't want to sell to purple people, then you say, I'm sorry, I can't work with you, and you walk away.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the only thing you can do, and you can't support that activity. And then you report it to the police if you want.
Definitely.
All right, guys. I'm going to get on Peloton because I got to be filmed at 10:30.
And I think these forms are already in .loop.
They are. I showed you they're in .loop.
Yeah.
That's where I went. I went to .loop. I went to Florida Interactive Forms, and I searched in multiple, and they popped right up there.
Yep.
Cool.
It was just a question that was there. I was repeating it.
Okay.
Okay, everybody, have an awesome Friday. Have fun, make money, be safe.
Yep.